Good evening, everyone. If you could take a seat for those who are still standing. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Laura Rosenthal. I'm a Malibu City Council member here, and I also have Lou Lamont, another City Council member, is here, and we are very, very excited to bring you this latest installment of our Malibu Library Speaker Series. A couple of introductions before I want to introduce Margaret Donnellan Todd, who is the county librarian for the County of Los Angeles. And Margaret has been invaluable for all things Malibu Library, and especially for help with this Malibu Library Speaker Series. We also have Reva Feldman, our assistant city manager, who also is in charge, our liaison with the library. So thank you all for coming. Lou and I have actually been very lucky that we have had the chance over the last few years to meet Mayor Kevin Johnson a few different times. One was up in Seattle with the Gates Foundation when he was head of a group of mayors that came together to discuss education. And a couple of other times we were up in Sacramento with the Washington Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. So, because he's passionate about education, among other things. And I'm just going to read a little bit of just to let you know who he is, though I think most of you already know who he is. Kevin Johnson was elected as the 55th mayor of the city of Sacramento in November 2008 and reelected to a second term in June of 2000. And he grew up in Sacramento, so he is a local boy. He is the first African-American to be elected to the office, and since he took office, he's embarked on an ambitious plan to reshape how city government serves the citizens of Sacramento. His priorities include improving public safety, creating jobs, launching green and sustainability initiatives, and reforming public education. He is also very committed to elevating Sacramento's profile as the capital of California. And he's taken on a range of national leadership positions, which take him all over the country. One of his current roles is as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I think, as most of you know, before he took office, he had a diverse career as a professional athlete, entrepreneur, and nonprofit executive. He served as CEO of St. Hope, a nonprofit organization he founded to revitalize urban areas. And he also played professional basketball in the NBA. This was after earning his BA from Berkeley, and he went on to play 12 seasons with the Cavaliers and the Phoenix Suns. And he was just selected as a finalist for the NBA's Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Class Fame of 2014. And philanthropically, he's also served on the board of directors for the California Charter School Association, the UC Berkeley Foundation, and Teach for America. And so please welcome me in joining Mayor Kevin Johnson.
How are you? How are you? Good to see you. Thanks. Am I supposed to stay way up here? My goodness. And you even have a seat. This is nice. Hello to everybody. Are you guys not baseball fans? You do real? 2-2. 0-0. Do I need to hold this mic? Can you guys? Am I mic'd okay? I'm okay. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. Thanks. This is kind of cool. I want to thank, I want to say Mayor Laura, but I guess you're Dr. Laura. I didn't know she was a doctor. She and I met probably in February 2011, 2012 up in Seattle. And we had about 40 mayors from around the country talking about education. And after the event, she said, I got to get you to come to Malibu. I was thinking, Malibu? When I was in high school, I played basketball for the kids in the back. I was getting recruited from colleges around the country. And you get letters, and they send you the pamphlets. So if you lived in Northern California, you get letters from Stanford or Santa Clara or Cal and Nevada, Reno, and Idaho State, and Then there was this one that had like a beach. And I didn't know the colors were like blue and orange. It was called Pepperdine University. And that's where I wanted to go. Literally, that was my first introduction to Malibu, and I've been in love with Malibu ever since. Couple people, I know you thanked all the electeds, so to the electeds and Reva, Assistant City Manager, it's somewhere in here, I think. Or did she not? She's trying to watch the baseball game in the back. So thank you for what you do. And then I'm just proud to bring greetings from our librarian. Her name is Rivka, and I know Margaret is over here. So greetings from Rivka. I think you guys all know this, that libraries play such a critical role. And I know the speaker series is sponsored by both the city and the library. And it's about access for people who might not otherwise get access. It's about lifelong learning and literacy. Libraries, again, play such critical roles. So let's just give a round of applause for the library. All right, so I'm supposed to talk about sports and politics. Okay, but before I do it, this is like really cool, seriously. Get to sit down. Is there like a mini bar up here? So sports and politics is what I was supposed to talk about. So I figured I'd start off with context. You guys remember Donald Sterling? And there's no better example than sports and politics than what happened with Donald Sterling. At the time, I was mayor of Sacramento, still am, and I was representing the Players Association for the NBA because they were looking for a new executive director, a new president of the Players Association, and they asked me to chair the search committee, and I said yes. And we were doing our work, over the last couple months. And then all of a sudden on a Saturday morning, I get a call. And that call was from one of the members of the search committee who said, "Did you see or hear the Donald Sterling recording?" And I said, "No." I said, "Tell me." And he texted me, and I was like, "No." So obviously a little while later, I heard the recording. And then I called Chris Paul, who was president of the Players Association, played for the Clippers. And we had a conversation. He asked me, would I expand my role to not just be in charge of the Players Association search, but would I represent the players in this big fiasco as it relates to Donald Sterling? And I said I would. Right after Chris Paul called, I ended up talking to Adam Silver. And he was the commissioner. He was in the commissioner seat for about 2 months. And he has to deal with one of the most difficult things that the NBA has ever had to address. And he and I had a 25-year relationship, dang near, because I played in the NBA and he kind of marched his way up the ranks. And I say all that to say that, I don't want to make it about Donald Sterling, the person. I just want to say the remarks that were made were like so hideous. And it was just so difficult as a former athlete, or in this case, Adam Silver as a commissioner of the league, to figure out, how do you rectify this? How do you fix it? How do you make sure that one act or those comments don't reflect the whole NBA? And that's what we were trying to do. And I'm representing the players' side, and he's representing the owners. Remember, this happened on Saturday. He and I talked 3 or 4 times on Saturday. I talked to the players a number of times. And the players had 3 things they wanted. One is they wanted the swiftest, most extreme action possible to occur. 2, they did not want to sit on the sidelines. They wanted their voices heard. And the third one was a combination of that. And as I'm talking to Adam Silver, he said, that's the least that I can do. And this is on Saturday. He was in San Francisco on Sunday for the playoffs. I went down. We talked on Sunday. And then on Tuesday, he had his press conference. And in his press conference, he essentially said that Donald Sterling is going to get a lifetime ban from the NBA. He's going to get the maximum fine, and he's going to be forced to have to sell his team. You can't do more than that, than what he did. And this was a great example of players coming together and management coming together, being on the same page to stand up for this league. And who is this league? The league is the fans. It's those young boys in the back. It's all of you in the audience who love basketball or sports. That's what this was about. It was about us saying that sports transcends everyday things that happen in society. Sports bring people together. It allows us to talk about things that we couldn't normally talk about. If you think about the civil rights movement with, people like Muhammad Ali taking a stand for what he believed in, or Jesse Owens, or Jackie Robinson, or there's so many, the 68 Olympics when the guys, put their fist in the air. Somehow, civil rights and sports, they bring us to a place where different people can come together and have conversations that we would not otherwise. So what was a negative ended up being a really powerful moment for not only basketball and sports, but society as a whole. So I felt like that would be the context for me to start my remarks. And, if I didn't, I was thinking about if I hadn't learned anything else from that experience, it's really, the world is not what we always think it should be. It's really not. Just like we don't live, unfortunately, in a post-racial society, even though we all like to believe that we do, but the reality is that we don't. And in terms of my remarks today, I knew there was going to be some students here. So are you guys in high school or college? High school? What high school? What college? So I know what your college looks like. Hold on. So do y'all see the water from where y'all go to high school to? Seriously? Dang. If I could just do it all over again. So, I thought I'd share 3 simple stories about life not always playing out the way you think. That's kind of my context. Life not always playing out the way you think. And the first one is a story about how sometimes you have to jump in the sack with strange bedfellows. Don't take me out of context. The second is sometimes you have to inform people of the obvious. And the third and last is sometimes you end up where you're least expected. So that's my spiel for tonight, those 3 stories. So the first one is, I'm playing in the NBA, and this is like super cool. Kids go to high school on the water, you go to college where you can see everything, you got like technology. I'm from Sacramento, so I'm like trying to beg, borrow, and steal the cool things you have on. Josiah, take some photos of this. Right here. So I'm playing in the NBA, and I played in the NBA from 1988 to 2000. And I played essentially my whole career for the Phoenix Suns. I got drafted by Cleveland, got traded my rookie year, so 11 and a half years for Phoenix. I went to Cal Berkeley for college, and when I think about this, it'll make sense, because I grew up in a poor part of Sacramento called Oak Park. And when you're poor, the only field trips that you do every year are like you go to the zoo, or you go to the park, or anything outside of your neighborhood just seems like a really big deal. And when I say outside, it's like a mile outside of your neighborhood. So that was like our field trips. So fast forward, I get into the NBA, and there's 29 other cities. I'm living in Phoenix, and there's 29 other cities, and you're flying to all these cities. I'm thinking, this is like free field trips. Like, I can go see 29 other cities for free, and then when I get there, I get to play, and then they pay you to play. I'm like, life can't get any better than this. So thinking about these free field trips growing up, I said, when I go to these cities, I want to meet people or see places that I wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to do. I just didn't want to go into a city and go to a gym or a hotel or a restaurant. I wanted to get out, again, because it's not something I did all the time. So I remember in like 1992, 1993, my 4th year or so in the league, I'm a big proponent, as Dr. Laura said, of education, and I've always been a big proponent of education. And we're playing the Boston Celtics. We get there a day early, and I'm thinking, like, who do I want to meet in Boston? And I know what county we're in, so I'm a Democrat. Really? And then for the rest of you, I'm a moderate Democrat, so everyone should clap. So if you're in Boston and you're a Democrat, you want to meet like a Kennedy. So I'm thinking, I want to meet like Ted Kennedy. So I have a friend, again, I'm in my third or fourth year in the league, so I didn't know how this worked. So I had my friend pose or act as if she was my secretary, and then they call Senator Kennedy's office. It's like stuff on TV, right? I'm just trying to do what I thought people did on TV. So my friend calls Senator Kennedy's office and says, I'm Nina, and I work for Kevin Johnson, and he happens to play professional basketball. He'll be in Boston. Wanted to know, is there any way that Senator Kennedy would meet with Kevin Johnson? And she put my fake assistant on hold, comes back, said, when is he going to be in town? She tells him. Next thing you know, I got an appointment with Senator Kennedy. I'm like, how cool is this? So we walk in, we fly into Boston, we get in day early. We had like a meeting at 1 o'clock, so I go in, I'm by myself, I go in, and secretary does her deal, and next thing you know, I'm in the office. I'm sitting down, his desk is here, he's on the other side of the desk, and I'm just going. After a while, he's like, I'm still. I think I had like a crush on him, and he was like looking at me like, hey, you. So we start talking, and we met for about an hour, and at the end of the conversation, it was a really cool meeting. At the end of the conversation, I asked him about public education in this country. I said, far too many neighborhoods and children who live in poor, underserved communities aren't doing well. The public school systems aren't serving the kids to the degree that they should. And I said, Senator Kennedy, how are we going to fix our schools? And he said, you know what, that's a really good question. Then I said, what do you know about charter schools, and what do you think about public charter schools? And he said, I don't know a whole lot about public charter schools. Then I said, Senator, but how are we going to fix our school? You're like the highest ranking Democrat in the Senate. You're a chairman of education. And if you don't know how to fix schools, who does? So I remember leaving there like discombobulated, because if Uncle Teddy didn't know how to fix our schools, like who was going to figure it out? And again, I'm a moderate Democrat, because if he doesn't know. So about a year later, Nina, posing as my assistant, we were going to Washington, D.C. And I'm like, Nina, I got another job for you. And of course it was volunteer. I said, who should we try to meet with, or where should we try to go in D.C.? And she said, well, you can go visit the monuments. I'm like, well, anybody could do that. I'm like, I don't want to go visit the monuments. I want to go meet somebody or do something that no one else could do. She said, well, Clarence Thomas just got confirmed on the Supreme Court. I was like, so I said, what the heck? So Nina calls, and however it works out, the person said, Justice Thomas would be honored to meet with the mayor, KJ. My nickname was KJ, just for the record. Honored to meet with KJ. So this was hard for me. Remember, I'm a moderate Democrat, and Uncle Teddy is the man, and then Justice Thomas, I'm thinking he and I have nothing in common. Like the color of our skin maybe, but like nothing else in common. And you can't get as far left and as right as these two, right? So I go into his office, and I walk in, and to the left, he has artwork of Frederick Douglass, which shocked me. On his other wall, he had a picture of Booker T. Washington. So like I'm all confused now. I'm like, and on his desk, he had one book. What was it? The Bible. So like he just totally violated every expectation I had before we even had a mouth, before we even had a discussion, before he opened his mouth. So we sit down, we talk, hour goes by, hour and a half. I'm like, I have to admit it, this guy is a little more interesting. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say more. He's interesting. Much more than I thought. So at the end of it, I said to him, what do you think of charter schools, public charter schools? How do we fix public education? He got really serious. And he said, if I had a daughter who was in 4th grade and we lived in a poor neighborhood and she was trapped in a poor, failing public school, and that was her only option, not only would I support public charter schools, I would do whatever I could to give more parents choices to go to good schools. I walked out of there like shaking my head, like I'm doing now, shaking my head. And here's the first lesson, maybe for the young people in the back, is you have to stick to your principles, but you have to abandon your assumptions. Where you think you're going to get the answers may not be where you get your answers. So if you limit yourself to people who look just like you, or have the same party as you have, or the same religion, or the same music taste, then you're going to get answers in that box. But those might not be the right answers, or the answers that transcend what you're going through day in and day out. So that's what I learned at a young age, that, and being an elected official like we are, is the best ideas come from both parties, not just from one party. And we can't limit ourselves to be so partisan that we're not willing to interact. That's why Washington is so broke, is that if you're a Democrat and you come up with an idea, the Republicans are going to torpedo it. And if a Republican comes up with an idea, and the Democrats are going to crap all over it. And that's just not the country. That's partisanship getting in the way of a great country. And that's what I would challenge young people in particular in the back, and the little bit older than the young people in the back who go to the university. Don't get so caught up on the Democrat-Republican label stuff. That's not how you create a great university or a great college experience. So that's kind of my first story, this notion of sticking to your principles and abandon your assumptions. This is not a mini bar. Is there water anywhere? Awesome. Is there water up here? Tequila. All right, so that was the first story. The second one is this. Do you guys remember Magic Johnson? Raise your hand if you remember him. Are you guys even old enough in the back to know? How old are you guys in high school? So what year were you born? What year were you guys kind of born? In the 90s? Nobody in like the 80s? Seriously? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Holy moly. So my second story is about Magic Johnson. Easily one of the top 10 basketball players to ever play the game. Freak of nature, 6'10", 6'11", could run, pass, jump, shoot, but more than anything, had a great smile, great personality, and was just a leader on the court and off the court. So remember I told you earlier, I grew up in a poor part of Sacramento called Oak Park. And after I had played in the NBA a couple years, I wanted to revitalize the neighborhood I grew up in. And in order to do that, we had to try to bring a cafe, sorry. We want to bring a cafe into the hood, right? That's like a big deal. Do you guys know what a hood is, or do I need it? Do y'all? I'm looking out there. I know about 6 people know what a hood is. Does everybody else know what the hood? Okay, how about somebody in Pepperdine? Tell me what a hood is. I'm serious. Anyone? Any volunteer? No, I said it over there in the Pepperdine middle section. Go ahead. Nobody wants to do it? All right. So when you grow up in an underserved community, so my commitment was we were trying to revitalize the neighborhood I grew up in, and I started a nonprofit, and I had bought a building with my nonprofit, and we wanted to bring in renovate a theater and bring in a bookstore and a barber shop and art gallery, culture, but we needed a coffee house to really like make it really work. And when I started thinking about it, I talked to all the local coffee folks, and they wouldn't do it. They didn't want to take a chance on this neighborhood. So I called Magic Johnson up because he had this partnership with Starbucks. You guys aware of that? So he had these Magic Johnson Starbucks, stores. So I flew down to LA to meet with them, and we're in his office, and I said, Magic, we talked for a little while. Then I said, I'm trying to get a Starbucks into Oak Park in Sacramento. Can you tell me how you did it? And he said, yes, I'll tell you, but it's going to be off the record. So now I'm telling you guys off the record. So I got to get rid of this mic because I got to be off the record. So he says, here's how it went down. He said, I didn't know Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz is the CEO of Starbucks up in Seattle. So Magic calls him up, and obviously Howard, he didn't need an assistant because it's Magic. Howard's like, Magic's on the phone, give me the phone. So he gets on the phone, they have a conversation, then Magic says, I know you're busy, you're a CEO. There's a part of LA that I want to do some business in, this is Magic saying, and I want to bring a Starbucks into Ladera Heights in LA. And Howard doesn't know Ladera Heights, and Magic said, so I would love for you to think about bringing a Starbucks into Ladera Heights. And Howard said, oh, Magic, God, you were a great basketball player at the Lakers and had some great battles with the Western Conference. When people do that, that's a bad sign because they're not really answering your question. They're trying to distract, get you off point. So Magic said, all right, Howard, great, I got it, I'm a good basketball player. But anyway, can we get a Starbucks into Ladera Heights? And Howard said, you know what, Magic, my phone is ringing. My other phone is ringing. I'm going to have to take this. God, it was great talking to you. I'm going to have to take this call. Magic said, wait. No, Howard said, no, I heard your question. I'll call you back in a couple weeks. They get off the phone. A couple weeks go by. Magic, being a point guard, calls Howard up again. Howard like, Magic, I was just watching the video on Classics of you and the Boston Celtics and the battles that you used to have with Larry Bird. God, they were just so American. Magic says, thank you, Howard. Is there any chance I can get Starbucks to come to Ladera Heights in LA? And Howard said, Magic, God, you're so tall. You have a great smile. You're like, God, you got so much charisma. And Magic said, I know you're about to get a call in another minute, so I'd really like to know if you'd be interested in bringing a Starbucks to Ladera Heights. So Howard said, Magic, I don't want you to think I didn't hear you. So when we talked a couple weeks ago, I got my marketing team together, and I asked them, what is the growth pattern? Like, where are we going when we open Starbucks store, especially in Southern California? And Magic said, okay, keep going. This is good. He said, so we're expanding in LA, which is good, which is great for you, Magic. But Ladera Heights sits right here, and our growth pattern goes. It just, like if you were 2 blocks north, and Magic's, scratching his head, and he said, that doesn't add up. And Howard says, well, Magic, I'm going to tell you something off the record. And now Magic told me, and I'm telling you. So young people, you're never off the record, just so you know. So Howard says, Magic, I got my marketing team together, and then they did a feasibility analysis to determine what a profile of a Starbucks coffee drinker looks like. You guys with me? Like the demographic, like what do they look like? How tall are they? What's their ethnicity? What's their income levels? Their age? All that. And Magic's like, okay, I got it. This is good. Keep going. He said, so they're just telling me that in Ladera Heights, it doesn't look like it's the Starbucks coffee drinker profile. And Magic's like, Howard, can you put it a different way? And then Howard said, Magic, my people are telling me that black people don't drink coffee. Magic said, beg your pardon? Yes, they said black people don't drink coffee. Magic, without missing a beat, said, Howard, when are you going to be in LA next? Howard said, I'm there in 4 months. Magic said, when you're there in 4 months, please call me. I want to show you something. 4 months go by. Believe it or not, Howard calls them. They get together. They meet at the Magic Johnson Sony Theater in Crenshaw, South Central, in the hood, the underserved part of LA. So they meet there and they walk in the movie theater. It's Magic's theater. They walk in, him and Howard, and they stop right on the other side of the lobby, and Magic points to the concession stand. And he said, Howard, look, what do you see? Other than a lot of black people. Howard said, I see popcorn. Magic said, you're right. And look, black people eat popcorn. Howard, what else do you see? I see like soda. Magic said, you're right. Black people drink soda. Howard said, are those Raisinets? He said, Magic said, Howard, black people eat Raisinets and licorice too. Howard said, Magic, you make a very good point. He said, here's what I'm willing to do. Let's find out together whether or not black people drink coffee. Magic said, I'm in. Howard said, wait. There's two things you need to know first. In order for us to figure out this wager on whether or not black people drink coffee, it cost $1 million to build a Starbucks store from the ground up. And I'm a businessman, Magic. So if you put up $500,000, I'll put up the $500,000, and we can figure out together whether or not black people drink coffee. Magic was like, ooh, that's like an expensive wager. Magic's like, I think black people drink coffee. Or like we used to drink coffee. Magic says, I'm in. Howard said, no, one other thing. I know you play team sports, Magic, so let's divide the work. Starbucks, Howard Schultz, we'll worry about the business operations, because that's what we do well. And Magic, you worry about the marketing, the branding, the community outreach, because you know the community better. So let's play to our strengths. Great. You guys know the margin of that, what's it cost you, like $4 for a thing? How much is it? $6 now? Dang. All right, so y'all know it costs like $6 for one of those things, right? Stand up and show it to them. Stand up. Show them. $6. So the margin for profit for coffee is really big. Like that right there costs them like 30 cents, and they sell it for $6. So it's a big margin. So typically when you do a Starbucks store and you invest in one for Starbucks, it takes like 4 years to break even, and then after that, they got a return on their investment for every year it's open beyond that. Does that make sense? So 4 years, you get your money back. Year 5, you make money, and every year after that, you're making money. They open a store. 6 months goes by. Howard Schultz calls Magic. Says, Magic, I got good news and bad news. And Magic's just horrified at this point because he put $500,000 into it. And Magic says, tell me the good news. No, Magic said, no. Tell me the bad news first, because I may not. No. Tell me the good news. So Howard says, here's the good news. Normally it takes 4 years to get a return on our investment. This store has been open 6 months, and I am proud to tell you that this is the #1 Starbucks store in America, and in 6 months, we got all our money back. In 6 months. Magic's like, well, what's the bad news? He goes, the bad news isn't really bad. We're going to open up 100 more Starbucks around the country because I'm thoroughly convinced that black people drink coffee. So what is the moral of that one for you guys? Young people and a little bit older than the young people. Perseverance is part of it, but it's actually a bigger message here. That people in every neighborhood want the same thing as people in other neighborhoods. They want safe streets. They want good schools. They want commerce and jobs. They don't want anything different. So whether you live in Malibu or somewhere else, everybody wants the same thing. And unless people take a chance on a group of people or a neighborhood, you have these myths or these stereotypes that actually create a reality. That the Starbucks profile didn't have very many black people in their database because they didn't have Starbucks stores in those communities where they were. And now that they're there, Starbucks, again, has opened hundreds of these stores around the country in underserved community. And for the record, I did get them to open one in Sacramento. And that store did very, very well. And this is one thing, I mean, I'm a part of this slow food movement and organic and eating healthy and all that. But like McDonald's, they got this early. These McDonald's, they're opened in poor neighborhoods all over the country. And they hire people from those neighborhoods. And then those people from those neighborhoods move up. And then pretty soon they own a franchise. And then they own multiple franchises. So I just want us to understand that every neighborhood wants the exact same thing as other neighborhoods, but we've got to make sure that we do our part to build those bridges and create that reality. So that's kind of my Magic Johnson piece for the young people. Every neighborhood wants the same thing as other neighborhoods. Don't you ever think anything different, no matter what you see on TV and no matter what people tell you. All right, so my third and last story is kind of a fun one. And I mentioned, my nickname was KJ. I grew up poor. And as a kid growing up, going to Washington, D.C. never seemed like a reality. Like, there's just no way. Like, we had a street called Washington, so that was cool. You went to Washington and hung out in the street. Then there was this movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Like, I watched that, and I was like, whoa, how cool is that? So I thought when I was in the NBA, I realized that if you win a championship, you go to the White House. This bald-headed guy from Chicago named Michael Jordan prevented me from going to the White House. 1993, we're in the finals. We have the best record, Charles Barkley. We have an all-star team. We're ready to go. And then the bald-headed dude prevents us from going to Washington. So that's 1993. So every year after that, we're trying to get back to the finals. It didn't happen. 2000, I retired. My number was up. It was time to move on. And I remember being disappointed, not only for not winning the championship, but for knowing I wouldn't get to go to the White House, because I had dreamt about this. So in 2000, when I retired, in 2001 or 2002, for some reason I'm in D.C., and I'm walking by the White House, and I realize for $10 you can get a tour of the White House. But I'm stubborn. That's not the same. I wanted to invite to the White House. And it just wasn't going to happen. So I moved back to Sacramento. We're revitalizing my neighborhood I grew up in. In 2008, I decided to run for mayor. And I take on the incumbent, the current mayor. I end up beating her in a runoff by a pretty good margin in November of 2008. And then in March of 2009, I get this letter. Because now I'm the mayor. Now I'm not just KJ. I'm like the mayor. I'm like I dress like this now, like I'm the mayor. And I have a real secretary, like a real assistant now. Her name's Adrian. So Adrian gets this letter, and she runs in and she goes, look at it. And on the outside of the envelope, it said like White House. And if you touch it, it's not like smooth. What do you call it? Embossed. Yeah, it's embossed. Like, in my neighborhood, you didn't get no embossed thing. It's like, so the letter was like embossed, and this is how you know it was real. There's no stamp. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Like, when you're in the White House, you don't need a stamp. You just send it. So I'm just like admiring this like envelope. Finally, she's like, are we going to open it? I'm like, I don't want to. It's like too good to open. Finally, we open it up, and we open it, and it says, Mayor Kevin Johnson, you have been invited with a select group of 50 mayors from around the country to the White House by the President of the United States of America. Y'all supposed to clap for that, because you got to clap for that. So I'm like, read it again. So we're taking pictures I was just giddy, right? So think about it. I'm getting an invite to the White House. It wasn't through the basketball way. It was just doing what your heart, believe you're passionate about and following your calling and being true. And I get an invite to the White House in like March of 2009. And I'm excited. So the trip was in May. So I went and bought a new suit. I'm getting ready to meet with like President Obama, like the president. I want to be in a new suit. So I get a new suit. We fly to Washington. We're leaving at 9 in the morning, these 50 mayors. What time do you think I got down there? 8 o'clock. I'm not missing this. I'm going to get a good seat. I get on, it's funny, at like 8:45, all the mayors come down. They line up. So 25 mayors on this bus shuttle and 25 mayors on this bus. Which bus am I on? The second one. And at the back, why? Because I wanted to just take it in. I just wanted to savor the moment. You know, like a good piece of food. You just want to, for a minute, just taking it in. So the buses take off, and we're heading to the White House. And all the mayors on the buses are like on their phones and reading the paper. And I'm thinking, like, don't they realize we're about to go to the White House? I'm outside. I'm looking outside, taking pictures of just, the fence. I don't know what I was taking. I was just so excited to be going to the White House. Pretty soon we get to the White House gate, and I'm in the second bus. The first bus pulls up. The security guard comes out. The bus driver and security guard have a conversation. They go back and forth. Whatever was said was the right thing, because then the gate went up. Bus went in. Bus 2 pulls up. Same thing happens. Security guard, bus driver. I can't tell you what was said, but gate goes up. We go in. Now we're on the grounds. I'm still taking pictures of like grass. So we on the grounds. You got to understand, I grew up poor. This is like a big deal for me. I need you to stay with me. Stay with me. So I'm taking pictures of nothing. So then there's another security. This time, the security guard comes out and the guard with the gun, like a for real gun, and then a dog. So they were like 3 of them: security guard, gun guard, and dog guard. All 3 of them. I don't know what went on, but pretty soon the conversation worked. The security guard 1 went in, gun guy stayed there, dog went around, hopefully didn't smell anything bad, went back in, gun guard went in, gate goes up, bus goes in. Our bus pulls up, same thing happens, gate goes up, we go in. Now we're in the inner perimeter, we're in the inner sanctum of the White House, like for real, like there's no more borders anymore. Like you're there and you can see the building, and there's only one thing left. What's your name over there? George. George was standing by the door where there's a gate to get into the White House. That was the last thing before you get there. So we all get off the bus, and George has a clipboard. George, act like you have a clipboard. George has a clipboard, and we line up. There's 50 mayors. Remember, 50 mayors. I'm like number 45. Why? Because I'm just trying to take it in. So first mayor goes up to George. George says, give me your name. Let me see your ID. Your name's on it. Check you off. They go in. You guys follow me? You just need your ID, your name on the list. You go in. Mayor 1 goes in, Mayor 2, Mayor 3. So now I'm like 45, 44, 43, 42. I didn't have my ID. You knew that was going to happen? So because I bought this new suit, it happened to you too? So because I was trying to be cool and bought this new suit, I had my ID in my other suit, my wallet in my other suit. So now, in the meantime, mayors keep going in, so now I'm like 40, 39, 38, 37, and I'm sweating. So then what happens, you get religious in a hurry. Okay, dear Lord, I know I haven't been in church in a long, long time. But if you just let me find my ID, like I know I checked, but if I can just check again and just appear there, I promise I'll start going to church again. I'm serious. I'm not trying to strike a deal. I should do it already. I'm 35, I'm 34, I'm 30, and now I checked all over again. I ain't had no ID. So I'm thinking, can I run back to the hotel, like in my MB days, and get back? And I'm thinking, I'll probably pull a hamstring. And then there's no way I'm going to get through that security guard with the gun, and like I'm like, the odds against me are just not going. In the meantime, the mayors keep going in one by one. And now we down to 18 and 17. I'm sweating. Then the reality, I just look at the bus, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to be on the bus all by myself, like I'm in timeout, right? Like Mayor KJ's in timeout, all by myself. 14, 13, and you know, 12, you check everything. Like, Lord, seriously, please. 9, 8, 7. I'm like, oh, and I'm sweating. And everybody around me is like, what's wrong? I'm like no, I'm good. 4, 3, 2. George, where are you going? George, you got to be here for the punchline, George. George, I'm at 3, George. That's not the time to leave, George. George, clipboard. Clipboard, George. I'm at 3, I'm at 2, I'm at 1. The mayor goes in right before me. George has got the clipboard. He looks up. He goes, KJ, come on in. Needless to say, I haven't missed a church service since 2009. And sometimes I go twice on Sunday. So that's the beauty of this story, right? So they let me in. Like, I ain't had nothing. Only the good Lord can make something like that. The dude was a basketball fan. Like, KJ, man, he tried to get my autograph. I'm like, sure, anything, you know. So I get in. I'll fast forward the end of the story, and then we'll open up to questions. Raise your hand if you've been in the White House. Hands down. Raise your hand if you've been invited to the White House. That's what I thought. So we get in, and we go in, and now we're inside the White House. And it's free. You're like there. So you go in, and we go in the East Wing. You know it's big because they got the West Wing, the main house, and the East Wing. Not like this side or the wing. So you go in the East Wing, we go in, and I'm literally taking pictures of pictures on a wall. And the other mayors are like, can't you just act like you've been here before? I said, nope, take pictures. So then, this is how crazy it is. You go up the stairs, and then when you get to the top of the stairs, there's like all this food. And none of the mayors are eating the food. Like, I'm from Oak Park, a poor part of Sacramento. When people put out food, it's free, you gotta eat it. So it didn't, for the life of me, understand why could you not eat the food that if it's out there? Like, who else is it for? So anyway, they didn't eat it. I wasn't gonna get kicked out at this point, so I don't eat the food. We're there just talking. I'm like, why are you talking about it? It didn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense. So all of a sudden, this loud voice, the voice of God, comes over the intercom in the White House and says, the president will be entering the dining room in the East Wing in 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, these mayors just take off to the East Wing. So we go in there, second floor, in this big room. We sit down, and I'm in like row 8. So like say 5 mayors per row. I'm in row 8 or 9, so I'm like 40, 45, and I'm just enjoying it. Then I thought about this for a moment. This was my other crisis. I'm thinking, is anybody going to believe that I was at the White House? Y'all know, like, when you grow up poor, you need some proof. You know, thank you. Let me put it a different way. Smart kids. The Pepperdine and the Malibu real quick. If you always bring home an A grade, your parents believe you. That when you say, I got an A on a test. If you don't get A's too often and one day you come home and say, I got an A on a test, your mom gonna say, let me see it. I know it doesn't apply to any of y'all. So I'm thinking if I go home and tell my mom I was in the White House, she gonna say, show me something to prove that you were really there. So now I'm like, the president is done with his remarks. I'm trying to figure out how to bring back a souvenir. Y'all know I grew up I'm innovative. So the president gets done with his remarks, the cabinet secretaries talk, they leave the room, the voice of God comes over and says, mayors, it's been great having you. You now need to leave the White House. So we go back by the food that nobody touched, down the stairs, and then we got a long hallway out. And now I'm thinking, like, my mom not going to really believe I was at the White House. So there was a bathroom. So I said, oh, let me go to the bathroom. So I go in the bathroom. I go in there, and, I go to the bathroom real quick, and she wash your hands. And then there were these these things you wipe your hands with. And they had the presidential seal on them. Y'all with me? I know y'all have them like a lot of times in your house where you engrave your last name, but this was a presidential seal, like the eagle. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, so then I like look under the stalls. I'm trying to sit there. See if the mirror, I'm doing all this, TV, I'm looking at all this. So finally it was the moment of truth. I had to make a decision. Do I leave with no proof and hope they'll take my word for it? Or do I take a chance? Y'all know I'm from Oak Park. Walk out. Security guard says, hey. He said, all the other mayors went that way. I got on the bus. We got out the grounds of the White House, went back to the hotel, did our business. We flew back home, had dinner with my mom that night. And what did she ask me? She said, how do I really know you were at the White House? Just in case y'all don't believe me, I want y'all to know I brought the proof, Malibu, the proof. So I'll end with a simple thought here. The world is not what we want it to be. So sometimes we have to make it what it ought to be. And each of my stories all relate to that, especially for the young people. You cannot allow the things that go on to happen with you standing on the sidelines or sitting on the sidelines. It's up to you to change and make that outcome that you think it should really be. And that's what my hope is for Pepperdine and Malibu High and the rest of the folks who are over 24 in the room as well. It's been great being here. Thank you guys, and God bless you. I think you guys are supposed to ask me a question or two. Feel free. What's the score of the Giant game? Anybody know? What is it? Who? Really? Really? Dodger fans rooting for the Royals. Oh, I forgot. My bad. I'm ready. Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you for coming here. It's been a real pleasure. Okay. What's next? Your mayor. What's next? Come on, be honest.
I will. Well, I'm not a typical politician, so I'm gonna be honest. In 2016, I'm up for a third term. So number one, I could run for a third term, which I'm strongly thinking about. Two, there's a lot of talk about me running statewide, which it's there, but I haven't made my mind up. Or thirdly, if I don't do either of those, then I really feel like getting involved in the private sector, and the space feel like I'm being called to is private equity. That's kind of where my thought is. So mayor, statewide, or private sector. That's where I'm at today. Whew. You're making me sweat already. Thank you, sir. Don't use what? You think I'm you think? Are you serious? Look at I got one of these things. All right, next question.
Hi. I want to know, what is it that gave you that spark that made you think this is a dream I can pursue? Like, I'm going to go meet Senator Kennedy. I'm going to go to the White House. I'm going to go be mayor. I'm going to go do these things. When you're from the hood, people tell you can't do those things. So what is it that convinced you that was a good plan?
The answer is relatively straightforward. Because I grew up in a poor neighborhood, and everybody used to always say nothing good comes out of those neighborhoods. I was just heck bent on trying to prove everybody wrong. That's number one. Number two, my mom used to always tell me, if you want to be special, then show up early and outwork everybody. If you want to be special, get good grades and treat people right. And I was like, is that what? like I got brainwashed that, being different and special is just doing the right thing. And then at some point, there was a drive in me that's in my core to be great or to make a difference. And it didn't matter what it was. Like, if I hadn't have made to the NBA, I'd have been a teacher, and I'd be the best teacher, one of the best teachers. That's what I was driven to. And I would challenge the young people, being average is not exciting. And being average is just as close to the bottom as it is to the top. So if you work really hard, that there's nothing that you can't do, and it may not come in the way you think it would come, but if you stay true to who you are, unbelievable things could come. And again, it doesn't matter where you're from. So thank you for that question. The young lady in row 3.
If you were mayor of LA, how would you get involved with the LA Unified School District?
She asked if I was mayor of LA, how would I get involved in the school system? So this was tried before, and I'm going to really get in trouble. So I'm only saying this if I was the mayor of LA, not if I was the mayor of Sacramento or Malibu, just LA. Like Mayor Viragosa tried this. He tried to bring forward an opportunity where the mayor could be in charge of the schools. And he made some good traction, and then what happened is the teachers' unions and others sued him, and it got all tied up in court. And what the outcome of that was, the only way a mayor in California could be in charge of schools is you have to change the Constitution of California. So what does that mean? That means you got to raise $2 million to do polling and hire a team. Then you got to raise another $2 million to gather the signatures to qualify for a ballot initiative, because the state legislature is never going to put it on. And then if you raise $2 million and another 2, you're at 4 to 5. Then you need to win the campaign, and it costs you another 20 plus million. I mean, that's what it would take to really get there. And it's winnable, but it just costs a whole lot of money. So if I was lucky enough to ever be considered to be mayor of LA, I'd want someone to raise $30 million before I said yes, and then we would have a chance to do it. Because I firmly believe in just accountability at the end of the day. Like mayors we want accountability. You want the tools and the authority to get things done. If they work out, you get a pat on the back. And if they don't work out, then you get booted and somebody else comes in and tries better. When you have these systems, especially for our children in LA or anywhere, you have these school boards. There's just no accountability. Nothing gets done. Everybody has their own interests. It's always political. It's driven by unions. That's adult issues and not kid issues. Everything but the children are the ones who people are talking about. If you go to a school board meeting, no one's talking about the kids. They're talking about 1,001 issues. That's why it's so frustrating for me, and that's why I'm thankful to your mayor and a lot of mayors around the country, because we believe very strongly that we should be at the forefront of this fight for good schools for our children. Kids come first. Teachers matter. Parents deserve choices. You want to invest in what works, and you want to measure and reward results. It's not that hard. So that's what I'd have to raise $30 million on the front. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Starbucks, you were my Starbucks man.
How you doing, Mr. Johnson? My question would be.
Wait, I feel like there's a story to who you are. Tell me who you are.
I'm the head coach of Malibu High School.
Come on, did I not feel that? I there was something about.
Yes.
There was something about. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Head Coach.
Honestly, I got an email and was told you're here, and you were my favorite player ever. So.
Did you grow up in Malibu?
No, I actually grew up in Houston, Texas, and I was in the Air Force. I moved a lot of times, worked at ESPN, finally ended up here.
Awesome. But
I ended up coaching in Malibu. I love the community.
Great.
But for education, I would like to ask you, you said you talked to Clarence Thomas and he gave you answers that open, your mind.
Yep.
And I would like to know how you would change education. Like, what would be your drastic change that you would make in education to make it different? Because I went to a public school and I grew up in the hood, and it was really not a great school. And then I taught at private schools, and just it's a total different teaching method just in general. I felt like the teachers worked harder at private schools to help the students than they did, at the public schools. And I'd like to know what you would do, like your drastic change for schools.
It would go back to, I think, the question that she said. I mean, I would love for mayors to be in charge of schools if they had legislation that would allow it. And the reason, here's why. I believe firmly, and I know Dr. Laura believes this as well, if you get a great principal, you're going to have a great school. If you get a great principal and allow that principal to be in charge of their budget, you're going to have a great school. If you allow that great principal to be in charge of their budget and pick the teachers they want, they're going to have a great school. When you have all these rules that don't allow you to pick your principal or them to be in charge of their budget, or they can't keep the teachers they want versus being forced to keep teachers, like all of that is a recipe for just disaster and failure. It's not that complicated. At these private schools, there's a principal that the board hires, not because of politics or anything. They hire the best person that they want to raise their children. Then they have a budget that they're in charge of, and they can pick whatever teachers they want. And as a result, you're going to create a loving environment, a high-performing environment, and those kids are going to do extremely well. You have politics and education on everything we do. It's so political. It's unfortunate. You know, Malibu is not, you don't suffer that here in Malibu, but in most places around the country, even nice middle class and upper middle class areas, it's still a challenge. You got white families in those areas that are driving out to private school to send their kid to a private school. Let me tell you something funny. If I can, I'll try to say this the right way. Y'all know who Warren Buffett is. So Warren Buffett said the best way, he's talking about D.C. He said the best way to fix public schools in D.C., he said, outlaw private schools. That means everybody got to go to a public school. Buy lottery so you don't get to pick which public school you go to. Buy lottery. So can you imagine the president and the Congress and all their kids having to go to public schools in Anacostia? Like, you think those schools wouldn't get good in a hurry? So, school choice to me is big. It's giving parents the freedom, public school, public charter, private school, parochial, doesn't matter to me. I want every parent to be able to send their kid to a good school. Everybody should have that right in America, in my opinion. So thank you for that. All right. Going once, twice.
Any other questions?
Okay, wait. One of the students at Malibu has to ask me at least one question. And Pepperdine, y'all look so distinguished over there. Y'all have to ask me one question.
Okay,
all right?
we got one.
Make your coach proud.
How did you feel when
Wait. You got to stand up. Come on now. You ain't that cool. Stand up. Tell me your name, tell me your grade, and then I'm ready.
Cordell Newton, junior at Malibu High School.
Awesome.
How did you feel when you dunked on Patrick Ewing?
How old are you?
16,
What year were you born?
1998.
See, here's the problem. The dunk happened in 1994. And it was Hakeem Olajuwon, not Patrick Ewing.
You're right. That's my fault.
But I'll tell you what, though, it felt really good. The dude was 7 feet tall, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like 6'1". And this was in the playoffs. You from Houston, too. It was in the playoffs. And Hakeem Olajuwon, I penetrated, I passed to Charles Barkley, he went up, Hakeem blocked it. I was like, dang. Next time down, I shook whoever was guarding me, I went to the basket, passed it, Dan Barley went up, he blocked it. Like 3 times in a row. So I got the ball the next time, I'm like, oh, I go down, and I had Kenny the Jet Smith. Y'all know who Kenny Smith is? I was like, shook him. Got him out the way. I went to the basket, it was just me and Hakeem, right? We looking at each other. And he looking at me like, he got that little smirk on his face. He go down, I go down. I go up, he go up. We both going up. All of a sudden, he start to plateau. I'm still going up. He go down. I'm still going, boom. I dunk on it, right? People go berserk, because I'm little. People go berserk, and I'm jumping around because I'm so pumped up. I'm at half court, like just amped up like you wouldn't believe. And all of a sudden I could see this big shadow coming out the half court. And I'm like looking, and it's like a king. I'm like, oh, shit. So he said, you got me, little man. Don't ever do it again, little man. And well, you know, I'm cocky. I'm like, I only had to do it once and then went to the free throw line. All right, Pepperdine, I need one question for some, yes.
How you doing? I'm Ricky Davis. I'm a sophomore at Pepperdine. Going back to what you're talking about when
Wait, what are you studying there?
I'm studying sports administration. Going back to talking about when you talked about how mayors would be in charge of the school system, how would that system of power work? Who would be under you, and why would they be under you? In what positions?
So I'll tell you cities around the country that have, let me take a step back. So Arnie Duncan, do you know who Arnie Duncan is, Secretary of Education? So I chair his task force for all mayors in the country. And I created something called a spectrum of involvement, where there's 5 areas. So area 1, like a mayor's got to be somewhere on the spectrum, whether they want to be or not. Spectrum 1 is alignment, where you align city service. Like a mayor can align my city services with the school district. So that's alignment. That's just, we all should do that. It's the bare minimum. Libraries, parks, there's tons of things that we can be, police, there's things that we can do together. So that's spectrum 1. Number 2 is partnerships, where mayors can be out there saying 3rd grade reading is important. We're going to do a 3rd grade reading initiative, or an after school, or champion the library. It's a little bit more than just alignment, it's partnerships. Mayors want to be more involved. Level 3 is advocacy, where mayors want to run school board candidates or advocate for policies, better policies, things like that. So those 3, you don't need a change of legislation. So I challenge mayors, if you're 1, try to get to 2. If you're 2, try to get to 3. 4 and 5, 4 is where some mayors, LA was one of them, where Antonio Virgosa had legislation where he had 10 partnership schools, that they allowed him to run 10 underperforming schools. So he had the ability to do that. They carved off a deal with the union and allowed him to do that. In Indianapolis, the mayor there can authorize charter schools. So there's legislation, state legislation, that allows the mayor of Indianapolis to do charter schools. So that's like level 4. Level 5 is where mayors have full control of schools. 4 is partial control, 5 is full control. In full control, there's a couple ways you can do it. A mayor could appoint the whole school board. That's New York City. You can appoint the whole school board, so I would make sure the business community and people who are result-oriented are on that school board. That's New York City. Some cities, Boston and New Haven, a couple of those, mayors can appoint the majority of the school board. And then thirdly, in Washington, D.C., there's no school board. So the mayor gets to pick the superintendent or the chancellor. So if I had my druthers, I could live with either of those, because if I can pick 7 people that are like-minded and have the vision I have and pick the superintendent, that would work for me. It would be easier to get rid of the whole, school board stuff and just pick a CEO to run the school. So I would lean toward, this is like a dream that you guys are like got me dreaming down here in Malibu. So thank you for that. All right, everybody. Mayor Laura, are we good? All right, everybody, thank you. God bless you. Did you read it? Right. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I totally remember Lou. It's like, come on.